Hi everyone, Mickey from Flipping Spain here. As you can see, it's October and my favorite month, so I've got my Halloween decorations up. It's not as huge a thing here in Spain as it is in America, surprise, surprise, but I'm doing the best I can. So I will be making a video about my visit to the town of Ezcaray, which is a little mountain town. It's near a ski resort, a very small ski resort, and it's not too far from Logroño, but it is worlds away in the way it feels, the architecture, and I just love it. So, of course, on my little visit, I had to go look at some properties, and I'll be happy to share those with you. But it made me think that I should do a short video on sort of what I call head versus heart. And this is a struggle in real estate because when we buy a home, it's a very personal thing. It expresses who we are. It has to have characteristics that make us feel safe, that make us feel comfortable. And especially in the US, we're very, very big on putting our own stamp on things. You know, your decor says a lot about who you are, and you want your personality to show up in your home. So it's very, very personal. So that can make it difficult when you switch over to being a real estate investor to sort of take that personal element out of it and start looking at things purely from a financial perspective. Now, I'm a believer that you can blend those a little bit. So for me, when I look at something, I do look at the numbers. That's how you tell if it's a viable deal or not. But for me, I also like anything I buy to have just something special about it. And that goes along hand in hand with the financial part, because I feel like if it has just something a little bit extra special, something that will catch people's attention, it's going to make it easier to rent, it's going to make it easier to sell, and it's going to make your tenants and your buyers just a little bit happier. So those things aren't completely separate. But for me right now, because I'm in Spain and I'm looking for my first property, I have to really ask myself, what are my priorities? Because my head and my heart are being torn in different directions. So first of all, I've been looking at a few different kinds of investments. Properties to buy and renovate and then resell, properties to rent completely, and also properties that I can live in that will generate income while I live in it. Now that's my ideal for the long term, but that doesn't mean that my first project should be that. It might actually make more sense for my first project to be something like this property, where I can buy it, I can fix it up, and then resell it. And then I can show that I'm making money in my real estate business here in Spain, which is going to be important for my visa in the long term. That's a very head-based decision. It doesn't give me security in where I live right now because I'll still have to rent something. And I don't really know the market that well. Until I do a flip, it's going to be hard to understand the whole process and what profit actually will look like, how fast things move. And I'm willing to take that risk, go through the process to learn that, and then I can do better on the second one. But ultimately, it's a very head-based decision, business-based decision. Then there's this middle-of-the-road option, where maybe I buy a 3-bedroom apartment, I live in one of the rooms, and I rent the other 2 rooms out to auxiliaires. Now that does a number of things for me. It gives me security in that I own a place to live, and I have a place to live that I'm not paying rent for. It gives me income because I have roommates sharing. It's not completely hard because I don't want to have roommates. I want to have my own home. And I don't necessarily want to live in an apartment. But if I'm going to be in Logroño working as an auxiliaire, it makes more sense to be in the city where there's more going on. I have a bigger rental pool. So it's sort of a little bit head and heart. Now that I've gone to this little mountain town and fallen in love with the architecture, it's revived my dream of owning, a couple 100-year-old house with beams and stones and that I can renovate and will have tons of character. And ultimately, that's where I would want to live. Now, ideally, I would still want it to generate income. So maybe there's another building or there's a way of dividing it into 2 units, something like that. But ultimately, it's a heart decision. I want to live in this area. This is my dream kind of home. So maybe I should just buy that and start doing that and then figure out the rest later. There's no wrong answer here, really. There are more practical answers, sure. There are more financially secure answers, sure. But at the end of the day, I have to decide, What is my goal? And that's the same thing I say to you guys. That's why you can't just say, what should I do if I have this much money in real estate? That answer is going to be different for everyone because it's going to depend a lot on where you're at. Are you purely in a headspace where you're like, my top priority is I have to make the most money out of my money? Okay, then. That points us towards certain strategies, which again will be slightly different depending where you live, how much money you have, what your borrowing capacity is, all these practical things. Or are you at a point in your life where you just think, gosh, I've had this dream of living in this kind of house. Now I'm in a place where that's financially viable. And I know if I buy that carefully, I can still use it to generate income and sort of support my long-term plans. And I've spent a lot of my life waiting for that to happen. So maybe now's the time that I can do it. Just go for it. So I'm kind of torn in this dilemma right now. The way I address that, besides listing out my goals and getting very clear on what is most important or what is necessary in order to achieve the next steps of my goals, my other approach is just to go and see as many properties as I can. I'm a very experiential person. I have to go and do something in order to decide if it's the right thing. It's not always the easiest way to go about stuff, but at least with property, you can go and look at things. If you walk into a house that matches all your criteria on paper and you just are like, I wouldn't want to live here, then it's probably not a good rental because other people are going to feel the same way. But if you walk into a house that you think, oh gosh, it's only 2 bedrooms, I really wanted 3 bedrooms, it's a little bit smaller, I really wanted something bigger, but you walk in and you just see the view and you think, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's the same thing your tenants and your buyers are going to see. So there's something to be said for balancing the head with the heart, I think. And again, I went and looked at a ton of properties in this little town and it's just really got my wheels turning because then it makes me think, okay, I know there's a certain formula for doing this in the city, but if I don't want to live in the city, what can I do out here? And there are definitely options. So that's going to be a lifestyle choice for me. And maybe it's not something I do right now. Maybe I take this first year while I'm being an auxiliary, while I have an income coming in from outside of my business to sort of figure out, the head part of things, but then always working towards the heart part because ultimately that's why we do it, right? We do it so that we have a lifestyle that we enjoy, a lifestyle that makes us happy. And at the end of the day, I think that's the most important. So hopefully you found that a little bit helpful. If you're sort of struggling between that head and heart, it's really helpful just to recognize that. And you can even make a little list. Okay, these are the things I'm thinking about that fit my business plan, that are head-based, that are financially based. These are the things I'm dreaming of. What is most important right now? And if I do these things, will it get me to the other part that makes me excited? As always, thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next video.